see my brother Nutama, some of you from New York City, Big Apple. We're fortunate. We're in one of the best places outside of Washington. We know everything starts in Washington. Again, a little bit in New York, but thank you for coming, especially this kind of weather. I want to discuss today about leaving behind. When we go somewhere, we are concerned about what we take with us and also what we leave behind. But first, I'm going to send out an announcement later today to the TBC conference and to a couple of websites. It's kind of a little update, and I'll share it maybe with you first. So yesterday I met with oncologists again. The day before that, there was a conference of specialists, melanoma specialists, and oncologists, surgeons. And they meet sometimes on different cases, so they met, discussed my case, and basically they, came to their final conclusions of what could be done, what should be done. Yesterday I talked to the oncologist to get the summary. They gave me the summary reports in terms of written out evaluations of the last test I took. So basically their idea is that they've done everything that they can do, that this is a very unusual cancer, worse skin cancer. And usually dark skinned people don't get it. When they do, it's a lot worse. And because the depth of of the concentration of melanoma was off the charts, it was 1 to 4, the depth was 4 plus. So their consideration, first they're amazed that it hasn't taken my body already, I'm sure. Because they gave me, when I told them if I don't do anything, how much time do I have? Basically meaning if I don't do anything based on their considerations, orthodox medical care, which has its value in so many ways. So they said 5 or 6 months. So this is a 6 months now, 6 months, I'm still here. And from their point, I didn't do anything until recently until I had the amputation. But we're doing alternative treatment. So when I sent out the message that I wouldn't be doing any more operations, because we confirmed yesterday that anything that could be offered couldn't guarantee anything. The chemo doesn't work with melanoma most times, almost never. The radiation doesn't work, almost never. Other cancers, yes. But so there was no value in pursuing those, which I wasn't going to do anyway. And then the consideration was doing another operation to take out the lymphs, because cancer is in the lymphs from the leg, from the drainage. And it also was confirmed that it doesn't guarantee any longevity, and the risks were tremendous that it could just produce extra complications. Their concern is that the only treatments they really have for melanoma is operation, and sometimes it's deferred, but nothing so distinct about that. So the idea is that you catch it early, and many people get, especially in Australia, because of the sun, so they catch it early. So it's like you catch it earlier, or in most cases if you don't, then it's a death sentence. So basically, they just showed me a chart of how long that one could expect to live, based on the stage, and also based on, past results for people who've had it. And so it could really vary from months to years. They thought it was something quite outstanding if you live for 5 years. You have it. Of course, I'm just one before the last stage in terms of the stage as well as the depth. The depth, I'm over the charts. And the stage, I'm just one before the last stage. And so, I had a chance to preach and to talk to them and to thank them. So my situation now is like I said in one of the messages I sent out. I feel that I'm on borrowed time. I'm in a window now, where things are going quite well. A couple of days back, I finished reading an interesting book by one of my godbrothers, who recently passed some months back of cancer. And I would advise you all to read it. I'm going to also send a message out to others that they should look at it. But it's mainly discussing Prabhupada's life before he came to America. And it talks about so many people who Prabhupada met. and who he impacted on, and it's quite awesome. My two best stories in there, she interviewed maybe about, maybe 35 or 40 people. And these were pujaris and acharyas and people who Prabhupada had, that was associated with in the Gaudiya Math, etc. And I thought the book was very, very informative and also very impacting. Because we here in North Prabhupada mainly, we know a little bit about his history as a farmer and family. We know very little about his family. One of his sons was retarded, became a homeless person, so many other people. But we also don't know so much about how much he prepared himself, what the nature of his bhajan was before coming to America. And so there's some insight about that that's like overwhelming. And I'll tell you why I'm bringing this up in a minute. True, I think very astounding stories that completely affected my life or my life that's remaining. One was the pujari of the Advaita Acharya temple in India, where Advaita Acharya resided. And he talks about how there was this sadhu who used to come and just be in the back of the temple, day after day for months or years. And he would just be in the back just chanting, hours and hours and just crying. And because Prabhupada was sitting in the back and would be very much into himself, but Joyce said he never talked to him, he never bothered him. He just felt that he didn't want to, disturb his bhajan. And then, after many years, maybe 15, 20 years later, a Western devotee happened to visit that temple, and that devotee had a BTG. And he gave it to the pujari, or showed it to him. And the pujari saw this picture of Srila Prabhupada. And he recognized that this was the sadhu who he had been seeing. So then, of course, he got informed about what Prabhupada's activities had been since that time. There's also a pujari who resided in the temple next to the Radha Damodar temple where Srila Prabhupada stayed. And he was interviewed. And so he was explaining to Mamula Prakriti how he had never seen anyone with such intense bhajan. There's all kinds of sadhus in Vrindavan. And he described what he had experienced. And he shared that for quite some time, he would hear this crying in the middle of the night. And he was often wondering who this was and what was this. So one day he got up on the roof of the house, I guess, next to the temple, and he looked down in the Radha Damodar courtyard. And there, like in the middle of the night, was Srila Prabhupada sweeping the courtyard and just crying and talking out loud, praying to Rupa Goswami, some of the Goswami, to prepare him and to allow him, equip him with the ability to carry out this service that was practically an impossible service that his Guru had given him. So, and even many, nice stories of that nature. How Prabhupada was living, in such impoverished environment, just a torn quilt. Anyway, when I read those stories, especially those two, I had a better understanding of just how important this movement is for the world, to what degree it was planned by higher arrangements, even more understanding how Prabhupada was so connected with the Goswamis, how fortunate we are to be able, to participate. And then even more, as we all know when we read the biography, how Prabhupada starts off with nothing, such an elderly age, it creates a worldwide mission. Well, that part we don't hear about much. It is the degree that Prabhupada went into his bhajan and crying and praying and going through austerity to do what was practically almost impossible, but knowing that the Goswamis and others, would in fact use him. And there are more stories explaining about that reveals how much Prabhupada was in touch with the Goswami. So now what happened to me, before I was asking devotees not to pray that I stay, and most devotees around the world, they were praying, that I stay. And at some point, the nature of the disconference, I pretty much, preferred to leave, figured that, okay, no problem. But now after reading that, in my own way, I prayed and communicated with Srila Prabhupada, and I asked him to give me another year or so. I felt so overwhelmed by this hearing and understanding better, a little bit more about the degree of austerity, of dedication, of difficulties that he underwent even before coming to Radha Damodar, and focusing on that has helped me to feel that probably wherever you're going to take me to or whatever you're going to do with me, I would like to have at least another year or so to be here with your mission here and to make some very, very significant impact. So I feel in my own way that Prabhupada is granting me this. So my consideration is that I'm on borrowed time, and who knows, a year or maybe even more, maybe less, according to what he decides. But this is basically the situation now. That the doctors are saying nothing else they can do. I've agreed not to go to any other allopathic operations or procedures. One thing they suggested that I visit NIH and do some experiment, but I visited there already before I went to Mexico. And I saw what they offer. And they basically deal with people who are casualties or near casualties with the idea that they kill you from the experiment. It's okay because you have no other means of survival anyway. And so I feel that I'm under more than just the orthodox arrangements or karma, and that there's a divine intervention aspect. And so I don't feel like I need to go there as a last hope. So, no question that I'm not interested or eager, or a little bit of fear is there about a slow, a painful cancer death. But after reading that, I just felt like, even if that's the case, I felt like I had even more. That if, Father allows me to stay another year or a little longer than that, and a part of that or a major part of that is a slow cancer death, then if that can help with adding more to to his mission, then I'm ready to do that. So I'm going to send a report just mentioning, in summary, we're going to ask the devotees to take my picture off their altars, thank them, ask them to keep me in their prayers, but there's no immediate death situation in terms of weeks or months. That I feel that I have a little more than that, not so much more, but I have a little more than that. There may be more time later when that kind of intensity is needed, but I'll explain that I feel that there's a time, and with that time I'm going to try to literally travel all around the world, which will probably be a last world tour, which devotees will be very disturbed that I'm going to travel like this, for some of you. But I'll wait until I get prosthesis and a little more healthier, such that I have a window. I want to use that as best as possible. I'm not thinking now about leaving my body in Vrindavan or Mayapur. Also, as I've been reflecting on Prabhupada's mood, and I was listening to several tapes by Tamal Krishna Maharaj, as he was Prabhupada's secretary in his last days. And he kept emphasizing that Prabhupada said he wanted to die in the battlefield. Of course, later we took him back to Mayapur. So I feel like that. My mood was always more, eclectic and moving around and kind of communications, public relations, and trying to help pious people in different communities, increase the faith of devotees, help devotees relate to help with spiritual balance. And so my mood was, I think, was more of a mood that better that I die in preaching in the field. So they were sending me some information about, the samadhi and things, and if I leave my body in Mayapur. But I'm also going to communicate that, I'll move in the field. And if necessary, time permits itself, then I'll leave and get an argument. So let us look at today's discussion. I just finished a book 2 days ago on Die Before Dying. And I think it'll be a very important book. I think it's very likely may be my last book. And I feel that this book was very good for me because I wrote this while going through the care in Mexico and some Palm Springs and Hawaii. Maybe I wrote one of them here in America. So I wrote them during the time I'm going through all of this all the treatments, and literally just having to focus on past and possible immediate transcendence. So I felt this would be an interesting book of helping devotees to grasp more the concept of the Vaishnava living, to help me to become more focused and internal with my connection with Sadhu and Guru, Krishna, and also to be very honest about what I was feeling. And so I'm practically leaving the book in the order of how I wrote each prayer. It allows the reader to walk through as I'm going through such things. So I'm going to read Meditation 14. And the title of this is that the things we leave behind. So I started off earlier by saying, when we are going someplace, we're forced to think about what that environment entails, what's needed there. We try to equip ourselves what's necessary for functioning in that particular environment. Now, sometimes it's more difficult in thinking about what to leave behind. When you're packing, there's so many things in the closet. Difficult thing is what do you leave behind? You don't want to leave something behind that you may need. But also there are times when you're forced to leave something behind. Then you have to regroup and think, what does that mean? Even once we were on the plane, I always think about this. I always carry a lot of important things in my briefcase. My bead bag, and because I have a prostate problem in the bathroom, the probably three dominant things in my life, even before I get really sick. Is my bead bag, but then the toilet is when I go someplace, and also, my briefcase. I do my writings there. I keep my passports and ID and so many different things. So I would often think when you first board the plane, they talk about buckle in, and they mention also, sometimes it's written down, if there is an emergency, leave your luggage behind. And sometimes I'm thinking, if that happens, will I grab my briefcase anyway? Or should I take something out of there? Let me take something out and put it in my pocket or whatever, in case something does happen. Then I think if something happens, will any of that make any difference anyway? People are going to grab stuff and not grab, and will it make a difference anyway? And so it's somewhat analogous when we have to leave our particular body. Like you have to leave sometimes your children behind to do something. You have to leave your wife, you have to leave your husband, you have to leave your house. Some of you have been in an apartment or a house, and you move. And then, it's a trauma, because it's like you've gotten so adjusted to that space and that environment. And you're going to leave some of you there. So many things are like that. A job, you change job, or whatever. Cars, so you got a new car, but that car you had, it became a part of you, so much of it integrated into your life, and you turn it in for a new car, but there's a part of you that's kind of dealing with some incoherence about leaving it behind. Some people don't. They just keep holding on to the same thing. Well, we know when death comes, we got to leave practically everything behind. And so that means our cars, our houses, our husbands, our wives, our children, our clothes, all the things that we thought we were, all the money we hid away. I mean, all of that, it's got to be left behind. And it's going to be the property and inheritance of somebody, the government or someone else. In most cases, they're not going to take it the same way that you took care of it. But in most cases, these things that we really identify with, which somehow, even though we are spiritualists, often we're still overly identifying, and we sometimes need to reflect on the fact that all of these things are so transitory, so temporary, and not only will we have to, but everyone must, at some point, be able to walk away. And so in the Mahabharata explains how Grandfather Bhishma explains, the only thing we really carry is Dharma, that everything else turns away. Like when somebody leaves a body, whether they're cremated, whether they're put in the water, whether they are in a graveyard, buried, whether they're put into a mountain and like the Parsis and Eden, by the animal, whatever, is that people walk away from their body. And so you depart, and they depart from you. And the things that we claimed or thought we owned, that they're no longer with us. But we do, of course, carry the karmic reactions of so. That's why I'm calling it die before dying, emphasizing that whether we die or not die, that we have to die. It's like Laban had to give up the body, he had to give up the subtle body, the consciousness. Consciousness has to change in such a way. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, an ancient Vedic scripture, there's a section that describes the character and qualities of Prithu Maharaj. The section describes his very auspicious birth and equates his various qualities to other great kings and other personalities who preceded him. His death is also simultaneously prophesied. See, sometimes these great beings, when they come into the world, it's just like, again, we said how in the diplomatic corps, someone does something in one country and then they get transferred to some other place. Or like in the Brahma Bharata Purana, it talks about Jesus. It explains interesting things about Jesus, about Buddha. Now, how does such scripture predict the coming of these personalities even before they appeared here? Description about Buddha talks about him even before he came into this world. So what happens is that sometimes this entity has already done something similar in a previous age, a previous yuga, or sometimes a certain kind of service goes on, and a particular entity always takes that particular service. Like we know that Lord Brahma is not always the same entity, but it's a post. So certain posts, the demigods have a post, and so they do certain things each particular age. And therefore it can be discussed or written in the great scriptures because it has already happened before, or because that is the nature of what goes on when one occupies that particular post. So here in the case of Prithu Maharaj, his life was being compared, he was being compared to other great rishis and sages and kings. He was glorified like anything by his quality as a perfect ruler. At the same time, even the way he would die and what that would entail was also given. When one meets death, one must leave behind so many possessions, associates, and other attachments. However, one who understands the inevitability of death and the eternality of the soul, and, of course, who has fully surrendered to the Lord's arrangements, will not be disturbed about what is left behind. Parents make so many sacrifices for their children. Most would sacrifice their own life for their children. Most of you have children, you would be willing to sacrifice your own life. When the children start school, or when they go to college, when they move out, when they get married, one will have to accept separation. Some of you have had that experience where your son or daughter finally goes to school, and the kid cries when they first go, and you go home and you cry also. Or your daughter or your son, finally gets married, and you're happy like anything. Finally, she's out of your hair, and now somebody is taking her to take care of her. But then you look at a picture sometimes in the house and you just start crying. Oh my honey, she's gone. So you are happy in one sense that they have matured, they're going on with their life, they've accepted a certain level of maturation, and now they've perhaps pursuing a family. But at the same time, you feel a tremendous loss. And the person is still alive, of course. We see that we feel a loss when there is this abrupt, kind of change. Normally the parents see the children as their property, an extension of themselves. One obviously wants to stay in control of their property. But when death comes to the parent or child, the forced separation must be honored. However, one who understands the inevitability of death, the eternality of the soul, and who has fully surrendered to the Lord's arrangements will not be disturbed about what is left behind. It is natural for each living entity to desire to seek out a special partner. Many feel one day they will in fact meet their soulmate. We are made for love, and we are starving for love. However, what we normally consider love is lust, i.e. the fulfillment of our own egocentric selfish desires. Many people spend their entire life looking for, waiting for that special person to descend in their lives. Most keep thinking he or she has finally arrived, just to later become more and more disappointed. A few who do seem to find that special lover becomes even more upset, sad, and disappointed when he or she dies. The more wonderful the connection, the more painful the permanent separation is. You can see the nature of the sambandha relationships in the material world. That either way they're going to bring some pain. You're going to bring some pain that you're looking for that person who somehow didn't quite find you. There's a problem. Or you find someone who basically the chemistry works very well. Physically, psychologically, and spiritually in some cases. And often that can be even more devastating because of the synchronicity and where you complement each other, and then when you're not together, it can be very difficult. Unless, however, one who understands the inevitability of death, the eternality of the soul, and who has fully surrendered the Lord's arrangements, will not be disturbed about what is left behind. Most people spend the majority of their quality hours working on their jobs. You see, the reason I wrote this, Grego, the mentality I was in, accepting that death was very near. And I was just doing an inventory on what will I leave behind. And it allowed me to look, very close at the different faces and activities of different godbrothers and god sisters, different services, disciples, projects. And so I had to process all of that and accept that, okay, so I had a chance and a time to be active in different environments, to associate with different great souls, and to try to be involved in creating and developing certain things. And now the results or the effort has been put out, and now the grading or the testing or the final report is about time to come in. The disciple has to constantly think that he has an obligation to his spiritual master. And so, although one may be a so-called guru or spiritual master, him or herself, but one is that to the degree that one is a disciple. And so the disciple is to constantly think in terms of what will be of most service to the mission of my guru. So the idea is, okay, now what am I leaving behind? And what does that mean with the little role or little part that I have tried to participate in the service of my guru? And what I need to maybe give a little more attention to, knowing that I'll leave it behind. What things I need to get rid of even faster, knowing that I'm going to leave it behind. And of course, this is everyone's situation, is that we're going to have to leave a whole lot of things, practically everything, even who we thought we were behind. And I was realizing also, I'm going to leave John Favors, Ganasham, Swami Krishna Pad, Bhakti-Tirtha, Guru Dev, Maharaj. I'm going to leave all that behind. Because I'm none of those things. Any more than any of you or what you normally consider you are or how people relate to you, that we have an identity that's in many cases, totally different from what we have thought we are and what other people have, how they perceive us. Now, the more that we accelerate in our spiritual consciousness, when we become aware of who we are, whether we're acting on that level in the physical on a day-to-day basis, no, not, of course. But one becomes more and more aware. Because as one becomes more spiritual, then there's less barrier between the body, the mind, and the soul. And so the individual begins to live on several levels at the same time. I was speaking to one of my godbrothers the other day, Srila Swami, and I was in a kind of a crossroad period. And I was mentioning that there's times when I feel more eager to drop this present identity. And I was saying in summary that somehow Prabhupada has blessed me that I have a little bit of acquaintance of other aspects of my existence. But I said, but I'm afraid to do that because that may take me out faster. In other words, if you are in one apartment, you're gonna move in 6 months, but in 2 months' time, you start doing everything related to the other apartment. It's almost like you've already gone, So the nature of my situation is so delicate and whatnot. And my own psycho-spiritual makeup is extreme. So then I'm the kind of entity that may, leave in 3 days abruptly, or stay for 30 or for 15, 30 years. Now that is not so likely, but again, extreme. So what happens then is that as we become less and less attached to the present duality, present material situations, with its relativity and transitorial, then what's left for all of us is who we really are. We're all pure in our original nature. And what we are experiencing now is acculturation. So when we stop holding on to things that we have accumulated with full identification, then what comes forth is our natural beauty, natural qualities of the soul, such as Nanda-Vigraha. So in one sense, self-realization is not as difficult as we sometimes think. Difficult because we're so conditioned. Prabhupada explains Krishna consciousness in a very simple way, and it was wonderful because it's very complicated. But it's very complicated and even more difficult than we normally think. We don't tell people in Bhakti 101 class that the longer you are a devotee, the more you're going to be challenged, and the more difficult your challenge is going to become. And thank you for joining Krishna consciousness. The longer you are a devotee, the more you're going to be challenged. You want to get first initiation? No problem. Little challenge. Second initiation? Go on, more challenges. And the more you change Hare Krishna, the more you become serious, greater challenges. Welcome. Not so many people would be eager for that. So as we go on in our Krishna consciousness, it becomes more difficult, but not necessarily hard. Mostly it becomes both. More difficult? Yes, it must be. What you study in secondary school and what you study in high school and in college, what you study in college is more difficult than what you study in primary or secondary school. You expect that. But if your preparation, your background and training was sufficient, then even though you have a more difficult studies and you're called upon more for a higher level of performance, it's okay. Because it's expected that you have the skills and you have the background to be able to excel. So yes, as we go on, it is more difficult. And that's where a lot of people fall down. Is that so many times we still apply the same amount of intensity, same amount of dedication, same amount of chanting, reading, whatever, that we were doing 5 years ago, that were okay 5 years ago, but are not sufficient now 10, 15 years later. The nature of the environment has changed. The nature of what you are subjected to has changed. And what is expected of us also has changed. So that's why sometimes it's shocking that somebody is so good for 10 years, and then somehow or other they become, they've changed so much, or they fell down. Well, if we're not constantly growing, and if our foundation was not sufficiently strong enough, later in our devotional life, it will come out, and it will hurt us. Sometimes devotees start off. This is why, when you first come to devotional service, when others come, it's very important to try to get them into good habits. And it's very important to get them into as best understanding as possible, because then that is the foundation that they're going to build upon. If it's not sufficiently strong, they may get away with that weak foundation at first, and later it's going to be very difficult. Sometimes you see people in high place and they're falling down. You go back and look at their foundation, and you'll see there were weaknesses in the foundation. And usually it comes along with the upper rise that begins to develop at a later time. So Krishna consciousness is very organic, and it's very monitored. It's like no cheating. When you cheat, it's marked under your name, and you're going to get some difficulties and some, debits based on that cheating. Now, the beauty of that is that everything is being observed by the Lord in the heart. And so when you do something good, even though it may not be accepted, recognized, understood, but if it's actually, with good intention is proper, that's also marked. And that becomes a part of your permanent bank account. Now, as we are doing different things year after year, our bank accounts are growing or we're taking away, and at certain points in our life, we have chance to draw off that bank account. That's why sometimes a person is doing well, and they start drawing, and everything is practically gone. You begin to weather these bodies like they're drying up. What do you do when you've had something, and you keep taking and taking out? One day you look, and you're overdrawn. Now what also happens, when you've been putting in and putting in, for a long period, it seems like nothing has happened. When you're putting in investments, in one sense, it seems like everything is the same. But then one day, you get the mutual funds, you get the stocks, or you cash in on the money market, whatever, and you have all of this that all of a sudden is made available for you that's yours. So we want to do, like when the sage was telling the brahmachari, you can live, the devotee, you can live or die. Meaning that even now your situation is quite austere, but what's waiting for you is wonderful. You're austere, and what you're having is great realizations based on the environment, and when you leave, you're going to have similar. So in each case, and then he told the butcher, you die, because you live as long as you can. Because when you die, you're going to suffer so much because you got so many debits. Yeah? And you can live as long as you can. Because you may be enjoying now, he's telling my friend, you got certain benefits and assets that has to do with something from the past and some mercy perhaps, but you have done a lot of stuff, and it's going to be different. So this is where Shraddha, faith, and patience becomes very important. Because Swami explains the importance of determination and faith, perseverance. And if we are doing the right thing, we have to do it understanding this is my offering to Guru. How would Guru feel watching me right now when I'm doing and planning? And then we'll be more, let's say, productive in what we are depositing, whatnot. In today's society, let me read a little more. Often one thinks that instead of leaving a job, one thinks he or she is the job. Instead of having a job, one thinks that they are the job. One may have studied very hard to become competent in their profession, made many Herculean sacrifices, passed many tests, and had outstanding achievements. However, at some point in the near future, when death comes, the job and all those things associated with it will also be left behind. So we have to realize that we have a job and not think that we are that, because we're going to have to walk away from that. And the way society is now in the Western world, you can work really hard and get to the point of almost near retirement and find yourself not having a job. So many people who are now very depressed, suicidal, who did everything they were supposed to, went to university, got a good education, got a good job, worked very hard in the company, and they're in their late 40s or 50s at a time when they're almost ready to retire, too old to start a new profession, too young to retire, and they're in big difficulty. And they get sacked or they get changed, and someone younger comes in, and they feel completely cheated. Or some of these companies, when pension time comes, if money's not there. Anyway, many disappointments. And I'm seeing it now because just recently I got insurance. I'm just shocked to hear some of the stories that people undergo with insurance companies. Is that all different kind of insurances, and some cover this and cover that, and in many cases they try to find natural ways, of course, how not to compensate you. And you have all these people who have been paying insurance all their lives, and they get really ill. In some cases, it doesn't cover certain things. In today's society, it is important to have a functional, secure residence. The mortgage payments, repairs, taxes, and other maintenance of one's house can be extremely demanding. Some of you know that. The bigger house you got, the more it eats you up. More for cleaning, more for mortgage, and more for repairs. It's like the house becomes an entity. It's just demanding. All right, fix the plumbing. Okay. Do painting. Okay. Repair this, repair that. Pay the mortgage, pay the taxes. The larger, more opulent the house, the more care and attention are demanded from the owner. The owner furnishes and decorates the house and cleans it on a regular basis. The apartment, house, or mansion is like a very greedy, demanding living entity that is never satisfied and is always asking or wanting for service, even though the owner has given such special care and touch to their residence and has spent decades acquiring so many things to decorate the house. When death comes, they will have to permanently separate from their residence. Sometimes houses become haunted because people just have such trouble, even though the physical body goes, they just can't leave, that environment. However, one who understands the inevitability of death, the eternality of the soul, and who is fully surrendered to the Lord's arrangements will not be disturbed about what is left behind. 1 or 2 more paragraphs. There are others who give more attention to decorating their bodies. They have closets full of clothes and drawers full of jewelry, cosmetics, and other things. That doesn't fit devotees so much, huh? Well, I don't know. But it's okay. Have you ever seen a gopi who wasn't very attractive? Huh? Have you? You ever seen a gopi who wasn't very suave? Huh? So those people who think spiritual life is something very boring and dry, they're missing the truth. Is that in our original bodies they were very talented and very artistic and very attractive and flamboyant. In today's society, however, there are others who give attention to their decorating body. Some people keep up with the latest styles, love to shop, love others to be envious of what they wear. Some are not only excessively into what they put on their bodies, but what they do to their bodies as well. Not even children are getting plastic surgery. Huh? They may go on many diets. I was saying the other day, yesterday I checked my weight. I was 142 pounds. So I've lost over 40 pounds. So I was saying I should write a book. How to lose 40 pounds in 2.5 months. I'm trying to gain, I'm trying to lose. Some people get anything. They can lose 40 pounds in 2 months or 3 months. Huh? Some people would love to gain it. They may go on many diets, exercise religiously, and others may visit the plastic surgeons regularly for various modifications and adjustments. However, no matter how much they decorate and modify the body, the end result is massive deterioration to one's health. The end result of whatever we do for our body is ultimately the same, that we do need that. However, one who understands the inevitability of death, the eternality of the soul, and was fully surrendered to the Lord's arrangements will not be disturbed about what is left behind. The hardest attachment to leave behind is often wealth and close friends. Because family is very special also. They are somewhat similar. Let's look at this for a moment as we come to our conclusion. We identify ourselves by our possessions, especially our finances. Today's society, people are very much categorized by their finances. You live in a certain place based on your finances. Often you go a certain place, you eat a certain way, you do certain things, have certain extracurricular things, based on finances. And often you have certain associates based on finance. People at a certain level, but tendency to associate with each other. We feel secure or very insecure according to our financial status. Our monies and financial assets are connected with the confidential aspect of our lives. Just as we share so many confidential things with our closest friends, and they with us. Just as when one is facing various difficulties, there will be some significant solace when one remembers he has stocks, bonds, gold, diamonds, real estate saved away that can be accessed when needed. You know, when you get these kind of things, there's a part of you that's feeling a certain amount of solace. You're thinking, well, I have a little trouble now, but I got 100,000 in stocks, you know. I can pull off of it when necessary. I am struggling right now, but, you know, I have 3 or 4 buildings in real estate. Close friends serve the same purpose. They are very magnanimous. They are very magnanimously on reserve, waiting and available to assist in any way that they can. It is very hard for most, this is a real close friend, eager to be available, just waiting for an opportunity. It is very hard for most people to appreciate existence without both of these confidants. However, sometime in the near future, when death calls, we will all have to leave behind the highly valued supports, securities, and also intimate friends. And we conclude, however, one who understands the inevitability of death, the eternality of the soul, who is fully surrendered to the Lord's arrangements, will not be disturbed by what is left behind. I am that lowly beggar who will also die in the near future, who will leave possessions, associates, attachments, and many relationships behind. Your prayers have prepared me to not be disturbed by what I left behind. For I will take your prayers and love with me. So as I said, I wrote this whole book while reflecting on life, reflecting on death, reflecting on eternality. And so in this early prayer, number 14, it must be maybe 21, 22 prayers. So almost halfway before the book was over. And I was particularly looking a little closer at the past, addressing, of course, the present, but realizing the present is just the near future. And looking at in the future, what exactly would I be leaving behind? And of course, I realized, you know, everything in terms of the physical things, and of course many relationships in some way, but at the same time, the spiritual relationships go on. They have their way to go on. Connection with disciples, vows are made on my side and their side. Connection with myself as a disciple, vows are made, you know, with my guru. And of course, in my case, and I've written so many books, so you know that'll hang around for a while. That's 4 or 5 that'll be coming out, you know, this year. And some impressions in some seminars, workshops, some impressions about the kind of mood and service that I offer. That we all bring something, you know, into the movement. And then looking at things that I would leave behind. And so it was my way of trying to die before dying. It was another way for me to try to be appreciative and grateful for what I did have and what who I did associate with, and a way to kind of try to honor those relationships, and even more so, to try to see how to maximize the opportunities and chances to have quality associations where there is still some time in such ways. And that's why I said my idea, and this can change according to what happens and how fast cancer may come back or spread. So I'd like to do one more world tour after I'm having the prosthesis for the walk and dance, and just go around and to bring closure to my relationships in many different places and to offer something. And then I feel that I would definitely have no reason to be looking and feel any kind of regret or compunction about you know, what is left behind. I mean, even now, and that's why I also was considering I would go early, because I kind of brought closure some time back, and was very much thinking that, is there any reason why Prabhupada must keep me here? And I felt no. And I understood that based on the prayers that I've made, based on the dynamics of karma, dynamics of my relationship with Prabhupada, is that I have, at least for now, have sped up my time on the planet. And I'm happy, because my main concern was the degree that I see those who are trying to pursue a spiritual life, the degree that I see intensity of suffering that causes blocks and causes entities and causes people to minimize the real value of what they're participating in and causes them to lose faith. Because when you're struggling and you're suffering, it often causes one to lose the ability to remain very focused. Like when you're in pain, you can do one thing or the other. It can cause you to become more internal. It can cause you to become anxious and angry and irritable, etc., etc. So unfortunately, most people, when they are dealing with their extreme challenges, it often goes into another mode. Instead of focusing that intensity at the lotus feet of the divine couple, often the tendency gets focused on why me, or on others, or scapegoating, or whatever. So of course, itself, Krishna's been so kind to me, and that I need to pay back. So I feel that a major part of what I'm going through is part of a chance to try to be more of a servant. And already I see just literally dozens of devotees, especially who are undergoing different challenges, chronic illnesses and things, write me and call me, have already told me how they've been helped so much by this drama that I'm going through. A tremendous number of leaders calling me. It's really sharing on a level like never before. Such. So let me stop there. Let's see if we have a few questions. What we leave behind. Now, once you look at their own life, my concern of writing and sharing these is not just to share something I've written. What's the value of that? But literally for my own self-edification and purification, as well as for you to reflect and put it in your own life and look at to what degree are you excessive about something that you're holding on to what degree you need to get something fixed before you leave the body, what things you need to prioritize more, what areas you need to minimize that you're giving too much attention to, given that you're going to have to leave it behind, and what kind of relationships you need to strengthen when you do leave that person or those persons behind, that you won't feel that there was things that you didn't have chance to do that that should have been done. Some of the saddest people when death comes are those who didn't bring closure. So they're thinking, I really didn't tell them I loved them. I should have apologized. I should have went there, did this, did that. So they're crying over the casket or whatever, but really it's kind of self-pity that this person has left or left them behind. How could they do this? With anger. When we've looked at all of that, then when time comes, then there's no problem. So any questions? And I started off by saying what? So today we talked about in 45-second summary. I discussed first that I'm going to send out a message basically saying, asking the devotees if they can take my picture off the altar. There's no immediate death right now from what seems to be the case. Asking to continue praying, that I have made a submission to Srila Prabhupada after particularly looking and reading this book by Mother Prakriti. I've just seen how much more involved Prabhupada was in preparing for this mission, how much he suffered, seemingly, or sacrificed in trying to get the full grace and blessings to do this, and in realizing that how Prabhupada is going on eternally in Krishna's service, and how many people who are with him now are people who have been with him in previous lives. And when they leave, they will be commissioned with him, or arrange things, will be things rearranged, by his mercy. So my concern was previously, no problem, if I leave today, tomorrow, or left earlier, okay. Just allow whatever is best for my Guru's service. And still that is the consciousness. But I'm putting in the additional aspect is that I see it even better, more, how intense you prepared yourself. And I would like, if it's okay with you, to be able to have another year to try to add something to what you've given, to kind of do whatever I can to help make it a little more secure, or to help some edges, round off some edges and whatnot. And hopefully the devotees will tolerate me. They may think, I thought you were going, Swami. You're more outrageous than ever before. Now I just tell him, a man raising from the grave it cannot be controlled. Have nothing to lose. That just have to go for it, in this way. So tell him, well, it's your fault. It's great that I stayed. So that's my plan, but who knows? Maybe I may not be so fit for traveling between places, but we'll see. And then I read, of course, the prayers and meditation on what we leave behind. So we looked at even the basic things. We travel, we have to prepare. What if they were going to make the big travel out of this body? We do have to look at what's needed, what that environment is. See, that's where the study of the scripture becomes very important, and especially where we're looking at the dynamics of the devotees, is that as you're going somewhere, you have to look at what that environment is. So we read more in the scriptures about what is the environment of the spiritual world and how the activities of the pure devotees, then we can be more astute about adjusting our lives that we'll be able to, see fit in. So any short questions or comments? So longer than I anticipated, so forgive me. Yes.
Maharaj, since you're talking about death, since we never know exactly when we're going to die, how can one feel a sense of closure, a sense of success, at the same time knowing that we can die at any moment in terms of on a practical day-to-day basis? Sometimes ourselves were involved in some of the modes of passion, and so that kind of activity gives us the feel of always hankering for something. But could you elaborate on the technology of feeling that sense of closure by, like you said, understanding having really a death and so on?
Yes, we shouldn't accept the mode of ignorance and passion. I remember several years ago in Nigeria, there was an evangelist who had convinced so much of the country that the world was going to end, like in about 2 months. And so people got all the money out of the bank. Some people just started going to visit prostitutes, the money they had. Some people just started traveling. Some people just didn't pay their bills. All kinds of things. And then 3 days before time, that last date, the guy just disappeared. Mm-hmm. And he had got so much money and things from other people. Anyway, this is an extreme case. So one shouldn't consider, or like with the Y2K, huh? Some people just didn't pay their bills. And when Y2K didn't happen, they were totally anxiety. They were thinking, oh my God, everything's going on as usual, practically. The idea is to just look closer, the idea of first things first, or looking at priorities. Looking a lot closer at what is our real essential primary things that are our identity. What are those things that are sanatana, that are eternal, that we want to try to connect with, while we take care of the body and the mind. It's not that because the house or the car is temporary that we deny it. It's that we do even better. We try to expertly and efficiently and expediently take care of it, so we have less energy to have to put into that, while we can put more energy into something else. But if we don't take good care of it, we have to put more time into it, and we have to disperse our energies in so many ways, we miss the chance to give more time to that, that is primary. And that's why a devotee should always try to be the best in whatever they do. If you're going to be an engineer, you're going to be a doctor, carpenter, a painter, or whatever. You're going to be the sweep floors. You do it as best you can, because that's an offering to Krishna, and to see it as that. But also, as you do that well, is that success, excellence, and integrity just extends itself in all aspects of one's life. You really can't, and Anuttama and Sesha discuss these things about ethics. You can't, have such a due standard of ethics. You can't, be so-called a sadhu while you jump over dharma. And you think, these things are not important. This is just secular. This is just something that's relative. No. But as you do that, that's you. You're the same person. Or it's like the thing where your private and personal life, you have a different standard of morality. No, it's the same person. So this way, what we're doing, what other things that we do, we should do them as an offering to Krishna, but constantly look at what is really essential, to your spiritual life to make sure that that isn't being jeopardized. Other questions?
Is it possible for someone, because that person sometimes approaches near death and that the health goes down and can't execute devotional activities or the change of facility, maybe the mind is distracted with pain, and is it possible for someone to arrange in such a way that the arrangement will remind them the chanting or prayers of Krishna, reminding them to glorify, or should we look at this kind of arrangement?
Well, like you've seen in your own profession, you've seen so many people die. Just your age as well as what you do in your work. And you see how people go through that in all kinds of ways. Some with fear, anger, and anxiety. Some, in a very peaceful state. I once mentioned how my father had this strange egocentric tendency. A few times when we were with him. And he liked to visit funeral homes. Because my father died at 94. And somehow he stayed very healthy until like the last year. He would still drive his own car and fix his house and everything. But obviously he had a great fear of death, which he, didn't communicate. But he would take us sometimes, we'd go to church, and after church sometimes he would just drive to the nearest funeral home. And we would go in a funeral home. I remember being very small and just looking at the writing of the person and then the person in the casket. And the daddy would say, "Oh, he's so young, he died already." And this one seems to have a nice smile, But one of the things that stuck on my mind is that I guess you call them the morticians, they often can know something about a person by how the body looks when it comes in. To some people, they have such fear on their face because they're seeing the Yamadutas. And some pious people, they like with a smile. They seem to be very pleasant. So sometimes they can know something about the individual by looking at the physiognomy, of course, the face tells a lot about the mind. So, to answer your question more directly, is that since death is really the accumulation or the aggregate of life, so therefore, it's not really that at death now we can just somehow, just click. I mean, mercy is there. Prasad is very important. Mercy is even greater than Krishna's law. But basically, according to how we live day to day, all is now part of, again, like the bank account. And then that what accelerates the soul. So if we have lived a very insensitive life, or very much focused on materialism and made that our priority, we have so much put Krishna, work him in an extracurricular way, then when we come near death, we're going to be in so much anxiety about what people are going to do with our house and how this bills are going to be paid and what's going to happen to this person or that person. Yes, some reflection should be there, but when it gets ready into the last moments or hours or days on this planet, you've got to drop all of that. And that's really hard. How hard it is for a parent to really drop that attachment to the children. It means that you got to think of them, but you got to think of them as like, Krishna gave me these souls to take care of. And the same Krishna is responsible for seeing that these souls get the next kind of care that they need. If I've done what was to do necessary, then I've set the arrangement for that. But if you're thinking, I got to be with this kid because I got to make sure that they get off drugs. All right, another body, another chance. Anything that becomes more important than our willingness to join in the spiritual kingdom means more time to work that out. And that's what's kind of difficult, and that's what's confusing. That's what's dangerous. Because when we hear no love in the material world, we hear we should not be attached, then we often are excessive with that. And we act impersonally, or we avoid attachments. But Kapilya Dev explained to Devahuti that one must be attached. One must be attached to devotees, spiritual devotee. So it's not that we're trying to have a lifestyle based on detachment of that which will assist in our devotion. That we are to be really attached to that which brings us back to the kingdom of God. And so in this way, we take the best care of our wives, the best care of our children, the best care of our cars, our house, in the sense that the real owner is Krishna. And therefore, because the real owner is Krishna, we must take better care than even if it was ours. In this way, we are involved with attachment and care, but at the same time, we are detached efficiently with a personal proprietorship. So when death comes, it's just the announcement of what has been going on. And now, the bank statement shows. Like that. And then the person says, well, bank statements like this, what can I do now to make a difference? Well, you got to look at what you've been doing along. You've been drawing out, or you're well depositing. So this is what's happening. You can't think, well, the bank statement's going to come tomorrow. Now, what can I do? Well, you've already done it. The last couple of weeks, you've been taking a whole lot out. And so what you're going to see is what the result of that is. And when you've been putting in, what can I do? Well, it's wonderful. You're going to see in the next day or two of what you have based on the actual deposit. Maybe one or two short questions. Anyone else? The tendency is we think, okay, now I'm going to just do whatever I have to do, and then the last, when I know I'm going to get ill or die, then I'm going to become serious. See, like in my case, in one sense, I'm very fortunate of knowing, that the death is soon, it's there. And so, just like in the case of Maharaj Parikshit, in the 7 days, you say, oh, terrible, to die in 7 days. But how fortunate he was, because he was clear that he's out in 7 days. So even though I'm going through all of this, I think the situation has been so hellish that in the last couple of months, I haven't slept. Just the last 2 days, I've begun to have some quality sleep. Just something simple like that people just take for granted. Take for granted laying down and going to sleep. Now, I have a better understanding what people go through, when they have insomnia, and I feel so sorry for them. First, I couldn't sleep because the cancer was so intense in the foot that every 15 minutes, the leg would just shake. And then somehow the tablets whatever was going on was accelerating my prostate problem. And so either the leg was shaky, or I had to wake up every 45 minutes, hour, to pass urine. And so that was the problem. And that went on, for weeks and weeks, well, maybe 2 months, a month and a half. And then once the leg was, the amputation that took place, the body had gotten so much in the habit of not sleeping that it's taken a while for me to just be able to learn how to sleep again. So yesterday, I was like in bliss that I had slept, more than 2 hours, And this morning, I was like in bliss. Because what I would do is every time I wake up, I look at the clock and I think, oh my God, only 45 minutes? And so to be tired and not to be able to sleep is hell, I'll just say all the other things like that. But just to think of that, you realize, oh, wow. So this is also one of the reasons I was, not disturbed about leaving when you get, cancer that's there. That's like a death sentence. You get sugar diabetes. They change. Everyone knows how much I like to have sweets. I wouldn't eat a meal without sweets. Huh? Literally, those who cook for me, they know. If you brought me some prasad, and there was no sweet there, I would send the plate back and or I would wait until the sweet comes. And not only that, I eat the sweet with the food. I guess that's kind of a Gujarati style, eating some Gujarati my last night. But I couldn't enjoy the food unless I have a sweet. I'm eating the sweet along with the food. And all of a sudden, I got this diet, where there's no sugar and no this and no that. And even worse, the first couple of months, I was no grain and no protein. The protocol they gave me in Mexico was to starve the cancer. And it was starving me also. That's how I lost a lot of the weight. Is that it was just fruits and vegetables, and very bland, and no grain, and probably no protein. And so the idea was going to starve this cancer while you did treatments from 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night. But then also you're starving yourself. So to think of sugar diabetes and insomnia and high blood pressure and prostate problems and cancer, all those things. And at the same time, to see that as mercy. So everything has to do with consciousness and how we codify and how we perceive something. I mean, if you had asked me a year ago, what were 2 things I would at least want to see happen to me? That is, not to be able to travel, not to be able to dance. These are the things that I have on me right now. Now I'm going to get around it. I'm going to travel and soon. I told the doctor 2 days ago, I said, you got to make a prosthesis for me that I can dance. So I may not have long to dance, but I want to dance. And so, they give me measurements and they'll try. See. Yes. This will be our last question.
Can you share with us some of the things that you've done to try to stabilize your consciousness during these times of not sleeping and all these other things that are affecting?
Well, you ask those who are my caretakers. They'll tell you that it's difficult to deal with me. They'll tell you, even once. This is on the side though. I had to have a few blood transfusions, and one blood transfusion I got, I just got ridiculous. I mean, I was just joking about everything, and I was out of character. And I realized, whoever gave me this blood. Whoever his blood belongs to must have been a comedian. I mean, I can hear about this. Tell you, I was in the hospital. They gave me, I had, in a month past time, I had 3 blood transfusions. And one of them, every time I was a little shift. But one, afterwards, I just laughed at everything. And just, and just tried to share everything in a funny way, And I thought, this is out of character. I mean, I do that sometimes, but I mean, the nurses come in and they were serious. And I even told one nurse, I couldn't believe it. He came in to poke me, They were checking my blood sugar, and then they had to take some blood to do some evaluation. I just looked at her and I told her, how would you feel? What would it be like? Every time you had to visit a patient, in order for you to see them, you had to poke you. I just started bursting out laughing. I was in the bed with all these tubes in me and everything, And she comes in trying to see my vital signs. And I just look at her and tell her, how would you feel? Every room you go to, they say, come. She looked at me like I was crazy. But, I'll get on that. But, just to mention all these things. Now, the point is, I don't know. I wouldn't have expected 2 years ago that I would be ready to accept this. I mean, I can see why communists commit suicide. By having so much inconvenience, so much pain, so much shift in their life. And when they have that and see the future is only more of that, Now, to be a devotee, and we know that we don't do suicide, and everything has its purpose and its, and its time. And to be put into a situation where you become an invalid, where you're used to being very independent and, spontaneous. So it's like a total shift. I would normally have trouble even staying in a place a couple of weeks. I feel that I should be doing something different. I mean, even to the point that for most of my devotional life, I very conscientiously did not sleep up to 6 hours. And if I slept 6 hours, I would feel this is time that belongs to my guru and also to the devotees. So I should use that time the best that I can. Now, I'm at a point where I'm thinking, only if I can sleep 6 hours. You see, so it's like a total shift. Most of my life as a devotee, I ate only once a day. Now sugar diabetes, well, I must eat several times. And they're pushing me. I'm still only eating twice, but I'm eating 3 times. So it's like everything is shifted in that way. So my point is, I don't think that I could do this. So I'm feeling that I'm able to do it because there's mercy from the devotees' prayers. I'm able to do this because I feel that Srila Prabhupada has personally put me in a situation, to use me for something bigger. I feel that the ultimate outcome of this will assist in touching the heart chakra, the institution somewhat, opening it up more. I feel there's certain things I've tried to address when I'm gone will even have, a greater impact than when I'm here. That's unfortunate. So, therefore, when I look at all of that, and I think, it's actually working. When I get the calls from my godbrothers, there's so many of them, and we share, and I hear how they're being impacted upon based on what I'm going through. When I consider that kind of the first time in our history that someone's picture been on all these kind of altars for such a long time. Symbols all around the world, my picture's there. They've been praying for me. And I think, well, the situation is so gross that Krishna gave me so much extra help and extra prayers to make this transition. And ultimately, from all of that, I feel extremely blessed. So it's a very interesting time in my life where I have more challenges, and as those who know me know that I'm very spoiled, I was a baby in the family. My mother spoiled me. I had 4 sisters and 2 brothers who, spoiled me. My teacher spoiled me. I was a pet most of the time. Prabhupada spoiled me in so many ways, You look at some of the letters he wrote me, you'll see he spoiled me in so many ways. And so now I got disciples who spoiled me. And I was the kind of person who had never really got sick in my life, except when I had the prostate issue. And someone who was very afraid of pain. And then to have to deal with all of that, total shift. I don't see myself being responsible for the strength to deal with it. I feel that. Because sometimes, to be honest, I'm shocked myself, realizing the condition that I'm in, and how I should be more disturbed. When they told me that, yesterday when I spoke with the doctor, we spoke for quite a while. I just told him, look, the doctor, I'm not afraid of dying. He let me know exactly what can you offer. And he was honest. He said, really, that operation can't guarantee you, a day more of life. He said the interferon, he said, some tests say that it helps. He said, but more tests show that it doesn't make a difference. He said, normally we would give you our treatment for melanoma is operation and interferon. And so he was letting me know that what we have, we can't guarantee you anything. So what we can show you is, in general, a graph of how long people expect to live, based on what you. And I just thanked them, and I just thanked the whole staff, and some of them were kind of amazed. This guy just found out that we can't do anything, and he's thanking us. But I was glad they were honest, and I knew that already since the medicine. So, how I can do that and all the plans I had. See, my chart, for instance, my astrological chart, and some devotees talking about my chart, shows that my life just begins to start this year. Is that I'm an entity of the future, so to speak. That this year, up until 80, is when there's one achievement after another on a huge international level with governments and people and influence of land and communities. So it's like from my normal situation of this body and it's coming into this soul coming into this body, is that my life is just beginning to start now in terms of my impact, my devotional impact, in my service to my guru. Now, whether Prabhupada made this change, this whole thing around, and just shocked everybody, and the cancer goes, and I go on, possibility, but not so likely. More than likely is that in order, at this point, based on what's necessary in my prayers, greater impact is I need the body. That may change. But so in one sense, it's like even that has all shifted. But then if we're doing things for Guru and Krishna service, then it's up to them how they use it. You're giving something for someone else, and they use it this way or that way, all right, it's up to them. If you're really giving it to them. If you're not giving it to them really, then it's got to be used like this. Because you want to be controlling it because you're still claiming proprietorship. So you're feeling, no. You have to use this only like this. And if that's the case, then that's attachment. So my point is, when I did that first MRI, and they put me under that machine, and I was, it was a long, 45 minutes an hour. And I did two things. One, I just did mental bhajan of just thinking of different leaders being in Mayapur at the GBC meeting, and just reflecting on all the good qualities of these leaders and their service to Prabhupada. And concomitantly, I was thinking, okay, I am offering my whole existence to you, Prabhupada. Do what you want. 5 minutes after I got out of the MRI, Madhav had come down from checking and found out that, that the second report proved that I had melanoma cancer, because we wanted a second opinion. So we had a second opinion. The first opinion said I had it at Clark 4, stage 1 to 4. Second opinion said I had 4+. So Madhav came in, he met me after I got out of the MRI, and he had kind of a sad look on his face, and I said, what's up? What's the report? He said he went up stairs or wherever he went to get the report, and it was 4+. So my concern was I offered my body, and this is the